It's the Carty Rugby Podcast. We're in Thomond Park. We're in the East Terrace. Sun is shining. It's a fabulous day. There's a bit of a breeze, but it's only going to keep us cool and calm, Danny. But pitch is looking magnificent, and wow, what are you expecting? Because I can't figure out whether I think we can win or not, and I'm just
I don't know. It's a really difficult one to call. I feel Munster will win. I hope Connacht can get something out of it. Their form coming into this hasn't been great, where Munster are absolutely flying, but Connacht do get up for the Interpros. So for me, it's a really hard one to call. Missing a couple of really key guys as well.
yeah.
I know we were expecting Mac to come back. He's a huge loss. It's nothing against the guys that have been picked, but just Max has that X factor that you need in these kind of games, you know?
Yeah, we definitely need at least 1 point out of this, I reckon. I reckon we need to get to 50, which means we need to get a point out of this minimum, possibly two, get a win against Stormers, who looked very, very good at the end last night, and then get something out of Leinster. Big ask, but if we were to get any sort of result today, it would have set us up for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I guess a big thing today would be just how do they play. Like, you know, if you get the win, yes, that's superb, but we have to be underdogs coming into Munster's home ground with them not losing since they lost to us on New Year's Day.
Well, they are under. Like we actually went from being Munster were 9-point favourites to now 10-point favourites after this. All the teams announced. Not sure whether the bookies don't fancy young Devine at scrum half, or maybe Jennings out there. But I think that's a great mind shift from the coaches to start trusting these young players. Something Packy's been calling for a long time.
Yeah, to be honest, I think those guys being selected has actually given us a chance, if I'm honest. I feel like Devine plays a game at such speed that you can't set as a defence, and it gives Jack Carty, who's an absolutely fabulous heads-up rugby player, like, you give him a quick ball, running onto the ball, that's exactly what he wants. You catch guys out of position in defence when the ball is coming out to you that quickly. It'll just be a case of that. Can we handle Byrne and Snyman in the second row of Munster?
Yeah, they're two world-class players, so it'll be fascinating to see how that all plays out. Of course, the other thing that happened this week is that they changed the referee. Andrew Brace apparently requested not to be the ref because he coaches refereeing stuff with Munster, and apparently he requested not to ref this game. So we have Adam Jones instead, who's a good referee in his own right, but let's hope we're not talking too much about the referee at the end of this game. We'll talk again in 20 minutes. As the sun goes behind the cloud, which is nice because I was starting to get sunburn. Just coming up to 20 minutes gone, and Munster have eventually scored the try, and they now lead 7-0 with Connacht with a man in the bin, Seamus Hurley-Langton, for multiple mistakes from the whole team.
Look, Munster have dominated the first 20 minutes now. They've spent quite a lot of time in Connacht's 22. They have only come away with one score, but having a man in the bin, we need to manage this time. And not be so wasteful. We had a couple of chances early on, but a bit of miscommunication or rustiness kind of seeped in and cost us chances.
It certainly did. It's going to be a long haul back from here, especially with Benetton winning earlier on. So it's all to play for.
I disagree. It's not necessarily gone. It's only 7 points, and it took them a long time to get to it.
That's what Munster do. They pressure and Connacht don't look as though they can do anything with the ball.
No, but they're winning. They're doing well in defence, apart from a couple of the odd offside penalties. You get that right, and it takes it away from them. They'll grow into the game, I feel.
Okay, let's see if they do. Half time. Munster 14, Connacht 7. Yeah, what a way to finish the half from Connacht. Brilliant pass from Jack Carty to Byron Ralston, who has now scored 2 of his 3 tries in Thomond Park.
That's a great stat. Maybe we should come down and play here more often when he's starting on the wing, I guess. But look, it's a half that's been dominated by Munster.
Completely.
Silly mistakes from Connacht. They got a yellow card. Munster made them pay. Like 14 points during that yellow card.
Yeah.
That's what you want, you know. But Connacht is stuck in it. they're finding their way with Blade at 9.
Yes, because we've got to say that Matthew Devine went off with looks like a chest injury or some sort of injury because he put ice on his chest when he came off the field. But anyway, yeah, so Blade is on.
And it's just a case of the ball being a little bit slower. I don't know, like, look, Munster are masters at the dark arts as well, and they could be slowing the ball down. But the ball has been a lot slower. We're getting caught behind the gain line a bit more, which hasn't helped. But a bit of sustained pressure in there, 22, and from a scrum, which you always say teams should be scoring from.
Absolutely. Scrum in the middle of the field, inside the 22, you should always score.
Yeah, and first phase, like, it was completely the right call. It was
Jack read it right, went the right way.
Yep, and then
a fabulous pass.
Yep.
Yeah, but prior to that, Munster had got a very simple first phase try off a line out, which I think it was just pure pace from Calvin Nash. He just outstripped the defence on a simple move. It was slightly worrying. It looked like Connacht were going to be in big trouble. But it shows a lot of fight, a lot more fight than I thought we had. But being led again by Dave Heffernan.
Yeah, Heffy's definitely leading with a good bit of fight. Like it's a well-worked try from them. It's frustrating to let it in from so far out.
Yes.
I do feel Connacht is still in this game. It's not a case of Munster
very much so.
A mile away from this.
14-0, didn't think we had much in it. We hadn't shown a whole hell of a lot. That last 7 or 8 minutes, they've shown that they've been playing well. Their forwards have not been beaten up, and they're dominating the scrums. And
I do think we have a better bench. So
yes, I definitely thought that. And if we can stay within 7, and the benches start emptying, we might just squeak something here. Because we bloody need it.
Yes, we at minimum need to lose a bonus.
Okay, this game is well over at this stage. We're 62 minutes, 63 minutes now. Munster 28, Connacht 7. And to be honest, Munster deserve it.
Yeah, they're playing good rugby. They've shown some good tries. That's probably well worked. Interchanging, guys running different lines. It's brilliant. We've got a little bit of walking wounded out there for a couple of guys. Blade's in a lot of trouble, but we don't have anybody to replace him for scrum half. You can see him clutching his chest every now and then. So, look, you can't.
Look, we're making a few chances and we're not scoring them. They're making chances and scoring them.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Okay, Danny, Connacht suffered their third worst ever defeat in the pro era against Munster, 47-12, and Munster well deserved it. Connacht are way off the pace.
Yeah, that's the only way to describe it. Is just not taking any chances. Like the skill levels is poor. It just seems like, I don't know, there's too many knock-ons, guys not expecting the ball, and just letting them in. It's Connacht getting punished for mistakes that they make when they don't punish the other teams.
To me, this season they have lost their identity. I'm not sure what Connacht are trying to do out there. I think they're trying to do too many things correctly and not playing enough rugby. I don't know if that makes any sense, but too many mistakes, and it's in the top 2 inches once again, I reckon.
Yeah, look, it's clear it's all mistakes because it was only 2 penalties in that second half, and they didn't come until the 77th minute.
Yeah.
But Munster had 6 entries into Connacht's 22. That's errors. It's just silly mistakes. Where's our cutting edge? Where's our killer?
Well, we
instinct?
started this game with a back three who'd scored 1 try all season between the 3 of them. Now, admittedly, Byron Roscoe scores 2 tries tonight, which means 3 of his 4 tries have been scored in Thomond Park. So he obviously likes the place. But I think we're definitely missing Mac Hansen, without a shadow of a doubt, and maybe having Mac Hansen there and Santiago Cordero would make all the difference, because we do seem to create an awful lot of chances. But at the same time, we've conceded over 40 points again. How many times are we going to do this season?
Yeah, and I know that's got to come back down to Scott Vardy and his defensive system. Either the players aren't getting it, or it's not working. And it's one of the two.
Yeah. Well, we thought it was the start of the season. We thought it was the best squad that we put together. Doesn't look like it now.
No, it doesn't. And when we say best squad, you're looking at guys, Bundy being nominated as World Player of the Year. There was a lot of things going for this squad. yeah, you're just like, what has gone wrong?
Yeah, I don't know. It's okay. I'll tell you what. We're too depressed to talk anymore. So here's the post-match press conference, and then we'll hear what William and Rob had to say.
Jack Carty, we're just in the tunnel here after the game. It's a heavy defeat. It's been a while since Connacht have been that far behind Munster because they've been close games in the last few years. The scoreline itself must really hurt in that dressing room.
Yeah, it certainly does. I think probably the difference between us, the games where we've been tied, and the scoreline today is we were probably more accurate in terms of our set piece D, and then also taking our chances. We coughed up the ball, I think, at crucial times in their 22, which on another day, if you score them, it's it's not, you don't have them pressure releases. So accuracy in terms of our set piece D was pretty disappointing. So yeah.
You defended your 22 a couple of times in those early stages, got yourself out, but then a mistake brought them back in again. That must be really frustrating when you had put some hard work in.
Yeah, well, I think if you end up defending 150, 160 tackles in the first half, it's going to catch up with you. It's going to catch up with you at some time. And I think the efforts that we put in in them first 20 minutes to keep them out, I think that's what you saw towards the end. It ultimately took a lot of our energy levels and our batteries away from us. So we just can't give teams like Munster access to our 22. We had two missed lineouts. We'd kicked and go off the pitch. So you're just inviting more pressure, and they're so good at holding on to the ball, building phases, eking out penalties, and then we're down to 14. So we handicapped ourselves a lot, and that's probably the most disappointing part about it.
You could have got a break, maybe Hurley Langton just an inch or two inside the touchline. Do you feel like the game could have swung heavily towards you, or do you feel like Munster ultimately were always going to overpower you a little bit?
I think on the day Munster were the better team. I think, as you said there's the Tom Farrell's break through the 22 from our 22, or Geno's break from our 22. You had Tom Farrell's, you had Seamus's, and even if you convert one of them at a crucial time, I think it changes the momentum in the game. But unfortunately, whether it be turnovers or loose balls on the ground, they end up kicking the ball down 60 metres, and then they get back into their stride and building phases, building momentum. So you can see why they're champions. You can see why they went to South Africa and won 2 games. So all credit to them. Momentum's
been an issue all season because you get a win and then it just slips back. You're behind the 8 ball a little bit right now. Do you guys still believe you can do this? You're probably going to need the 2 wins against Stormers and Leinster.
Certainly so. I think we can't look past Stormers. That comes down to being a cup final next week for us. We need to get a win at home, send the fellas off who are heading on, finishing up, and then all eyes on to the following week. But I think we can't look past next week. And I think if you look at what the Stormers did last night to Dragons, it was kind of a similar sort of game there. They ultimately punished them when they were loose, and I think that's where the focus will be for us this week in terms of being more accurate in terms of set piece attack and D, and then being more clinical when we can be. Just
have to ask you about injuries. We saw Devine go off. Obviously Blade was carrying an injury. Did you know that in that second half, and did that hamper him quite a lot? And you took a knock in the first half as well.
Obviously Maddie I think did something to his ribs, maybe, I'm not too sure, and Bladey another bang on his ribs. So I was aware of it. I was hoping that he stayed on, because we obviously went with the 6-2, and when someone kind of goes off early, it does obviously make things tricky. But credit to Bladey, he stayed on. Look, we've whoever it may be, whether it be Beans who's there as well, Colin Riley, we have depth at 9, which is obviously we're blessed with. But a few of the injuries now are stacking up, so kind of see how we are tomorrow. But next week's are the games you want to play in, so hopefully we'll get a few fellas back.
Pete, I mean, we have to start with the reality of that scoreline. Despite the way the game swung back and forth at times, 47-12 is a huge defeat for this Connacht group.
Oh, it's hugely disappointing. I think it hurts any time you lose an Interpro, but when you see a scoreline get away from you like it did, it hurts a lot. And the overwhelming feeling is that you've not done yourself justice, you've not done your supporters justice. And as I said to the lads, they'll be frustrated because we know we're better than the performance we delivered today. But at the end of the day, that is the performance we delivered, and we got what we deserved.
Where did the game really slip away from your perspective? Because obviously it was a yellow card in the first half. You shipped 14 points. You could just simply point to that and say there was no way back from there. But for you, what was the frustration?
There's probably 2 bits for me, I think, on immediate reflection. One is that period round about 30 minutes through to 60, that middle section of the game where We've conceded a first phase try. We've then conceded a try on a turnover from one of our first phase plays, and then we've conceded another first phase try on the back of it. And to get such not easy scores, because obviously they've got to be finished, but I think to cough up 21 points in that period of the game, that lets the game get away from you on the scoreboard and makes everything very tough thereafter, especially against a good side at home. So that period frustrates me. I think looking at the first 20 minutes as well, obviously Munster had an overwhelming amount of possession there. And whilst I think we defended manfully at times in that, that takes a huge amount of energy out of you. And I think you probably saw that in the last 20, 25 minutes of the game, where there's Munster going from strength to strength with the energy and the belief, and us really just fighting to stay in there and at times not staying in there. Now, the big question that we have to look at is, why did we not get our share of possession in that first 20 minutes? Because we had opportunities. There were contestable kicks that, had we taken cleanly, we could have some counter-attack on. There were 2 line-outs that we turned over, again, that we would have launched some attack on. Probably a couple of kicking aspects in there we'd look at as well. So we had our chances to make sure that we approached half-time on a more level footing. And whilst the scoreboard only said 14-7 at half-time, I think the damage done in terms of us really just defending and hanging in there, I think we saw that get away from us. So that's on us. That's controllable.
15 missed tackles in the first half. I mean, their try, the second try, no one really laid a glove on Nash. That must be frustrating.
Oh, hugely frustrating. As I said, I think any time, particularly on those first phase tries, you shouldn't concede a try on first phase. You've got a chance to set up. You've got a chance to see where their runners are, and essentially, if we do our jobs, then very worst, they get a slight bend on the edge, and you can regroup off there with 15 men on their feet. So hugely frustrating in that. And so the missed tackles, obviously a factor. You can't miss 15 tackles or whatever in that period of time. But as I said, those tackles are a percentage of a huge amount of ball carries that we had to defend, and we've got to be better to make sure that that we're not giving teams 120 carries plus in the first half. That gives them momentum, that gives them energy. But as I said, it puts us in a position of being on the receiving end, and that takes its toll eventually, whether that's in points, whether that's in energy, or in the case of today, it's in both.
They seemed to kick better during the game, even when it came to penalties. Jack Carty's range just didn't seem to be enough for what Connacht needed as a platform. Would you agree? And was that an area Munster just got the edge?
Look, I think probably not talking specifically about individuals, but I think as a team they kick better than us, and I think the metres they got from that, whether that was finding touch or whether that was just generating metres down the field and then being able to squeeze errors out of us on the back of that kick chase. I do think that's a factor in the game. It's a factor in controlling field position, obviously. But again, our kicks, you'd always like your kicks as long as possible, but you've got to kick chase really well on the back of them. And if you're not neat on your kick chase, then again you give the opposition momentum. You give them reason to hang on to the ball, as opposed to kicking it back to you. So as I said, you end up in a cycle there without much ball and doing a lot of hanging on.
Did you feel it was very disjointed in the second half with the injuries? But we were looking at Butler's break, and alright, it probably should have been finished off, but even then the alignment or the breakdown wasn't there. Connacht didn't reset quick enough, and a few minutes later Munster had the ball and Connacht got caught at the fringe really badly. Did you feel there were communications issues, or what do you think was at play that cost Connacht in those moments, both attack and defence?
Honestly, I think there was a franticness there. I don't think it's a communication thing. I think from a line break like that, which was a positive for us, but from a line break like that, it's going to be chaotic. It's going to be guys just having to react to secure the ball at the breakdown and work out where the space is on the back of that. So that's down to guys getting in effective positions. Obviously, communication comes into it, but I just think there was a franticness about us at that point. That happens when you're under the pump, and we very much were at that stage of the game. And as you said, the swing then to go 80 metres down the other end not long after and concede a try, it doubles down on the fact that we didn't take our chance there and a couple of other times as well.
Imagine if Butler gets that try but you still lose the game 10 to 12 points as opposed to the 47-12. How different is that in terms of what's coming next week? How much of a blow might the margin and the feeling in that dressing room be to Connacht's chances in these final two games?
I don't think emotionally the scoreline has an effect on next week or the next two games. I think it certainly has an effect today and right now. I think, as I said, it hurts me a great deal, and it hurts the team, the players and the coaches a great deal, and the supporters, of course, as I mentioned. So look, there's a short-term bit of that. I don't think it stops us getting back on the horse next week. I think where it does hurt us is, you score a try or take a couple of those opportunities, all of a sudden you're looking at not only getting a bonus point for scoring 4 tries in the game, but you're putting yourself within range to get a second bonus point for losing less than 7. But you don't take those chances, you're getting neither of those things. So that's the bit that probably concerns me more, is even on the days where you're beaten by a better team, every URC point is crucial at this stage of the year, particularly with the other results that happened today before our game. So yeah, that's the bit that adds to the frustration.
Connacht are now 4 points outside the playoffs. They need to win their final 2 games, and they need favours from other teams now, William. It's as simple as that. Otherwise, it's Challenge Cup rugby next year, and their season will end in 3 weeks' time against Leinster in the RDS. Very little on show here today to suggest they can win either of their final 2 games, let alone both. But they will talk a good game afterwards, and they will try to tell us that they can regroup from this. They've met a real force today in Munster.
They have met a real force today in Munster. Munster are the form team in this competition. There's no question. They've gone on a run. They've gone on a run of 7 wins, and it's difficult. Inaccurate. Started too slowly. And again, didn't convert. I mean, if they'd converted 2 of the 3 obvious chances, they would have had a bonus point, which at least would have helped a little bit. But they've come away with this game with absolutely nothing, other than maybe a couple of serious injuries. We don't know. And it's starting to look very unlikely now. They're going to have to improve so much to beat you would think, the Stormers next weekend.
In the build-up to this game, William, we said it's highly unlikely Connacht are going to get a win here. They need to get something out of it. Losing bonus point would be brilliant. Minimum, they needed a performance, because whatever about not getting points out of this game, it was hard to imagine that Connacht were going to be able to, launch a really good finish to the season off the back of a poor performance. 47 points to 12 in any book is way below par.
Yep.
It's borderline dreadful.
No, it's a very poor performance. There was a lot of errors. It's the same old issues in some ways. It's not taking your chances when you're given them. It's being unable to deal with the physicality, not being accurate enough. And I didn't think they would win here this evening, but I didn't see them losing as badly as this. No, you can argue they've had 1 scrum half go off and 1 scrum half play through what looks like a pretty nasty looking injury. Had to keep going.
There's a few big swings in the game, moments of
massive
real
swings.
Bad luck, where it looked like they were about to score a try and balls dropped and goes the other end. I mean, that makes me believe that if you play this game again, Connacht can finish within 10-12 points on another day. But 10-12 points is about as best as I can imagine. That's how far off they've fallen, Munster.
They have. I think this is the form team in the competition, and I think it stands. They've won 7 games in a row now. They lost in Galway on New Year's Day, and since then they haven't taken a backward step. They were a bit behind the 8 ball up until that game, and they've got the job done. You would think they're going to get a home quarter final at a minimum. They're desperately looking for a home quarter and a home semi, and if they can get that, they are going to take some stopping again. They are the URC champions, and they want to defend it. It's pretty obvious. They had a poor, by their standards, European campaign, and Connacht had no answers today. They just didn't. There was some, as we've seen all through the season, there was some decent attacking opportunities. There was some decent moves. There was some decent play, but 2 tries, they left 2 out there minimum.
There'll be a good bit of concern among Connacht supporters at the way this season is concluding, won't there?
Yeah, I think there will be, because next season is going to be complicated with the ground redevelopment. You can maybe argue that going back into the Challenge Cup is a good situation, but it depends how they handle that or what they decide to do with it. Champions Cup does bring a certain amount of excitement. They were semi-finalists last year. That is a long way away at the minute, a really long way away. And
this is a new management team. Andy Friend has left. it's an awful broad brushstrokes way of phrasing this, but like there's no hiding from the fact that Connacht have not kicked on.
Connacht didn't kick on when they won the championship in 2016, and they've done it again this year. And they have to look at that.
So you're comparing the two.
No.
Season after, but what you're trying to say is the season that we peaked in 16 to a massive degree. Last year, our semi-final was a peak as well. And you're just saying the following year, the follow-up isn't there.
The follow-up isn't there. They haven't kicked on this year. We've seen some new younger players brought in, particularly Shane Jennings, particularly Matthew Devine, and there are some others coming through. And I think it's time we saw some of them. I think Sean Naughton is potentially a really, really good 10. We know next season that JJ Hanrahan's not going to be available till March. Naughton is somebody who can put his foot through the ball, which was lacking today. And there's going to have to be some hard talking and some hard thinking. But all they can really concentrate on at the minute is next season is next season. They've got to concentrate on next Saturday. Final game in the Dexcom Stadium, formerly the Sports Ground, as it's in its current form. And we know that that is an important part of the journey for Connacht, to come and have a stadium where they can get more people in, have a better situation, a more just better conditions for fans. But it's going to be a tough night. I think the Stormers have come on a mission. But Connacht need to actually just look at themselves very, very hard and say, right, we're ready to go. It's going to be an interesting evening, 5:05 next Saturday. It's going to be fascinating.
Okay, that was the voice of William and Rob and their thoughts on the brutal beating. We haven't let this many points in against Munster, or we haven't been hammered by Munster like this since 2017. Not sure we're going to get anything out of this season, but we'll have to wait and see. Stormers next week. We'll have all the press conference info during the week, and we'll do a slightly longer in-depth analysis of the game on Tuesday, Wednesday, sometime this week. I don't know, I'm too depressed now to think about it, I have to say. That's it, folks.
Loose, cut it loose. Break out, or nothing changes. Sad and confused. Don't wait until